And President Donald Trump announcing today new blanket tariffs on a slew of countries. It comes with a new deadline added to the calendar of August 1st. That's when countries that are unable to work out a trade deal will face those high rates the president announced back in April. And for more on this now, we are joined by White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, thank you for joining us. Let's start with trade and tariffs. I know we want to get to the Fed as well, but throughout the course of this summer, we were told 90 deals in 90 days. We're almost at that 90-day mark. How many deals do we have?
Well, we're working on a lot of deals. Obviously, the president sent out some letters today. What we're finding, which is so interesting, I think, to the American people, is that these countries around the world, which we run large trade deficits with, have it so good, sticking it to us, that they're reluctant to give up that advantage. So what the president is doing with these letters is basically saying, well, here's what we're going to charge you for the privilege of entering our market. And we're going to continue to talk. That's the interesting part about this as well, how busy the United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick are in talking to people. So the process, the good news for the American people is the process is working very well. We're collecting billions upon billions of revenues from the tariffs already. They are being used essentially to give you things like tax cuts, and it's just going to get better and better as these deals get unfolded.
I know you say the process is working well, but that 90 days was originally going to be July 9th. We're now talking about August 1st. Is that a sign that these negotiations have been tougher than maybe anticipated?
They're not tougher in the sense that we have a baseline tariff in place. These letters are basically increasing the tariff on some countries. We have some deals that can be signed. I never want to get ahead of the boss, but you've heard countries like Vietnam and India in the mix. So as President Trump says, let's see what happens. But the top line here for your viewers is simply that we're collecting tens of billions of dollars on behalf of the American people. And what's that able to do is protect our workers, our factories. We've got trillions of dollars of investment coming in. So this is a process, and the process is going quite well for America.
And that August 1st deadline, can you guarantee that that will not be pushed?
It's always up to the boss, but I do want to talk about the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell, because that's the most immediate problem, I think, that the American people need solved. We're in a situation where the Federal Reserve arguably has the Fed funds rate, the short-term interest rates up probably about 50 basis points or half a percentage points, at least higher than it otherwise should be. Why is that a big deal? Well, a half a point of interest rates too high is basically a quarter to a half a point of GDP growth, which is depressed. Now, what does that mean? That means 750,000 jobs that won't be created when those interest rates are high, because we have to finance our debt, 20 to 30% of it with short-term rates. That's billions upon billions of dollars of additional debt that's added because of these higher interest costs. When you go to get a mortgage, let's say you have a mortgage $400,000 and you got 50 basis points higher on your mortgage rate, that's over $1,000 a year right out of your pocket. And then, of course, if you have consumer credit card debt. The data simply don't show what Jerome Powell and the Fed are doing as being justified. And the article I have, it's in a publication called The Hill. It basically talks about this isn't the first time that Jay Powell has made a major mistake hurting the American people. It's the third time. He did it first when I was here with President Trump in the first term. He needlessly raised interest rates, misread the power of Trumponomics, basically, to gun the economy without causing inflation, and he cost us. He just cost us a point of growth, jobs, and some prosperity and wages, and there he goes again. when he was the Fed chairman for Joe Biden. He basically didn't raise rates fast enough, and we got that terrible inflation that President Trump is having such great success with now fighting. So Powell, I mean, look, I nominated him for the worst chair in Fed history, and I think he's pretty much earned that.
Yeah, and while you were speaking there, we did have some of your op-ed on the screen for our viewers. I'll read from some of it. You say, by stubbornly refusing to lower interest rates despite ample data urging him to do so, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is committing his, as you said, third major tax blunder in 6 years. If he continues this path, he is going to be known as the worst Fed chair in history. It was last week when Powell said he probably would have lowered those interest rates if it weren't for the uncertainty over tariffs. We have seen market volatility, heard from business owners who talk about the uncertainty. Isn't that some credence, some value there, the fact that the tariffs and the uncertainty around them and these deadlines has made it more difficult to lower those interest rates?
Well, the famous saying, if you don't remember the mistakes of the past, you're condemned to repeat them. I mean, basically, the thing that Powell is doing is he's repeating the same mistakes he made in the first Trump term. He said the same kind of stuff. He simply didn't understand that the tariffs were not going to cause inflation, that the Trump plan itself is deflationary to control inflation. I mean, think about what we do. It's the deregulation, it's the tax cuts, it's the strategic energy dominance. If you look lately how much cheaper oil and natural gas is and gasoline at the pump, all of these things, it just goes right over the head of Jay Powell. One of the things I point out in the piece is that as an aberration, Jerome Powell is not an economist. That's an aberration. We've had only two Fed chair in modern history who weren't highly trained in economics. Powell and this guy, G. William Miller, and Miller was one of the shortest-serving Fed chairmen who blew up inflation in the 70s, and now we got Jay Powell making the same kind of mistakes. So look, there's going to be another Fed board meeting July 29th and 30th. They're going to have another chance to lower rates. And what I'm suggesting to the Board of Governors is that if Jay Powell, who has only one vote, won't do what the data says he should do, it's up to the Board of Governors to take control of this process. Because, again, I want to stress this. Everybody watching this has a stake in this game, whether you're paying higher mortgage rates or higher credit card debt, or whether you're worried about your job, whether you're worried about the kind of long-run prosperity and lowering our national debt. Powell's screwing that up. And it's time that people understand that better. And that's why I think worst Fed chair in history. I think he's earned that.
Is there a specific number that you're looking for to come out of that meeting later this month?
Well, certainly 25 basis points he should cut. He could go as much as 50. Back in the day, this is kind of what I used to do in my professional life as a macroeconomist. And back in the day, the Fed had a totally different strategy. They basically kept their cards close to the vest, and when they needed to lower or raise interest rates, they just did it. It created good uncertainty in the marketplace because it kept everybody honest in the bond market and in business and things like that. We've gotten into this habit where the Fed thinks it's got to lay everything out for the next 10 rate cuts or rate hikes. And it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of volatility in economies. Things happen. You got to be more nimble and flexible. And the Fed's not that. I mean, there's no harm in cutting 50 now. There's just no harm in that. If circumstances change and we get an inflationary pulse, he can raise them again. It's like, but the Fed's not thinking clearly on this. And again, the history's on my side. Powell screwed it up in the Trump term. He screwed it up in when he was under Biden, and now he's screwing it up again. And if you want to go into a baseball metaphor, it's 3 strikes, you're out.
All right, White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Sir, thank you for joining us.